prayer. Lord, we thank you again for the very reality of that victory. I thank you for the completed work on the cross. And I do pray that, again, as we spend these moments here this afternoon, I pray that you would challenge our hearts, our thinking, and our actions. And I pray that you be honored and glorified in all that's said and done here in this next hour. And we give you the glory for it. In Jesus' name, amen. Excuse me, quick reminders. Wednesday, Lord willing, we'll start with some food in the basement of some sort.
Yes, American.
Probably a very simple, nothing very elaborate, I don't imagine, but patriotic things. And we're going to do some red, white, and blue jello and that type of thing. But anyway, that'll start in the basement, and then we'll play it by ear as far as the weather and who all is here and what the plans are. We'll either transition to a normal 1 hour with the meal service or a longer service with the video. Either way, if you haven't watched Monumental, it's been a long time since we have. But it seemed like that was a very good just a reminder of our heritage as a nation. And so if the weather's bad or if no one's going to fireworks anyway, and there's interest, we may wind up watching that on Wednesday night and go from there. Other than that, we have the menu, at least to this point, for the month of July. Next week looks like we'll be doing some pork chops on the grill, and then sandwich and wraps and tacos. And then when Reverend Bob is here, doing meat on the grill. And still to find out from my brother Bob.
Yes.
All those arrangements, who's feeding them. But we'll work those out as we get a little closer. Am I missing anything? Before we sing our next song, I want to give you an opportunity, if you have any praises that you are thankful for, that you haven't already shared, or maybe want to re-share here this afternoon. Nothing. I see wheels turning. When it gets so hot, it's hard to even move, much less think. It's right.
I did have a couple, feels like it was 2 different people this week who mentioned that they either listen or watch the messages. And that's always a blessing. And it was people that I didn't know that were following along, or that it was being a blessing to them. And I just remember, I feel like it was 2, I can remember the name of one specifically, but just people I had no idea that they were following along, and they mentioned something about your messages and that it's a blessing to them to be able to be part, to hear them and to learn from them. And it's neat ministry, how you don't know who's all listening or who could encourage, or even just a one time if they can't get to church, and there it is. So.
Yes. It's a little plug on the social media day.
I guess, social media plug. And I don't know if it was website or social media, but they were listening.
Speaking of, our website has been down. I have to get it back up again. Somebody hacked it. And I have to put some more protection on it. And now I'm getting emails saying that there's more attempts of trying to figure out the password. So I don't know who's doing this or where they're doing it from. So far they haven't got in. And now I have the software that will send me an alert to say, someone's trying. So I hope to get that back up, but I want to make sure we can get it so that it's secure. Mm-hmm. Even more secure than what we thought I had it as secure. And we'll go from there. Is there anything else that we're going to say? Sure. Other praises? Now we'll move to our next song. King James song, the Old English songs. The subjects and verbs are a little different than what we would say, but it's how the King James has this song, "Oh How Love I Thy Law," 456. I need to make a note of adding the line there. Seems like you missed the line. Oh, how low that was. I think it's twice, right? Yeah.
Yes, now I see what you mean.
Anyway, if I remember, I will correct that for a future "Oh How I Love Thy Love" song singing.
Maybe you can do that when you're taking a smoking break.
A smoking, that's right. That's right. Well said. Quick review, Hebrews 5. Are you ready for this? This is how we finish up chapter 5, chapter 6. Kind of steps of maturity, leading, moving, advancing, and then moving from that, not having to relay this foundation. Again, as I pointed out, all those things would have been at least foundationally laid, even in the Old Testament. All of them, again, if we would pull up the card file, all of them say, see Christ, see Christ, see Christ. And it kind of brings the conclusion of that foundation that was laid. So we don't have to relay that, especially written to Jews. You don't have to relay this, you know that. But what you need to do is move beyond that. You need to go to see Christ from that. Continuing on to understand the impossible, the connection, or disconnect, the illustration. Finished up last time. Verses 7 and 8, pretty close to a point, summarizing way anyway, of the parable of the soils. And it is reminding us, blessed of God coming down on the earth, and both that which produces fruit and that which is weeds come up. And obviously the weeds are for the purpose of the fire being pulled out, and there's no value, no weight. There's a waste of it. We're going to look at it here this afternoon, verses 9 through 12. I'll read them, and then we'll dive into them. It says, "But beloved, we are persuaded better things of you, and things that accompany salvation, though we thus speak. For God is not unrighteous to forget your works and labor of love, which ye have showed toward his name, and that ye have ministered to the saints, and do minister. We desire that every one of you do show the same diligence to the full assurance of hope unto the end, that ye be not slothful, but followers of them who through faith and patience inherit the promises." Looking at this passage, especially as it begins, "But beloved," the very first word, and I kind of get ahead of myself, but that's where the passage begins, so let me start here. Beloved has that idea, that concept of writing to those, say this way, most of the time that word is used, it's written to the church, it's written to the Christians, it's written to fellow believers. Beloved. And it seems verse 9 is almost, especially since it begins with a conjunction, it's a contrast from the first 8 verses to what he is now going to be saying, beginning in verse 9. But, contrasting, verses 1 through 8, beloved, which also seems to be contrasting, verses 1 through 8, we are persuaded better things of you. And I struggle with what they even call this, but I'm going to call it things that accompany salvation, as it pretty much sums up there. It's funny that you get the points of the second point, get a heads up, and without the main point there. Just never know what today's going to bring today. But anyway, James chapter 2, verses 14 through 20, very familiar verses. I'm sure we know these, or at least know of them. "What are the profit, my brethren, though a man say he hath faith? There are many that say they have faith, but it's not genuine." It says, "What does it profit, though a man say he hath faith, and have not works?" We almost put in this phrase here, can that kind of faith save him? "If a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you say unto them, Depart in peace, be ye warmed and filled, notwithstanding you give them not those things which are needful to the body, what does it profit them?" What does it profit them to have you say those words when they walk away with their same need? What's the benefit there? "Even so, in comparison, faith that hath not works is dead, being alone. Yea, man may say, Thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. Thou believest that there is one God? Thou doest well. The devils also believe and tremble. But wilt thou know, O vain man, that faith without works is dead?" Faith isn't faith. It's not true living faith if there's no work involved. There's no evidence involved. And certainly what James is talking about here in James chapter 2 is not about a self-driven, going to have to get this done kind of a works. Kind of like what many times we feel like on Monday. I don't really feel like doing this, but I have to go to work. I'm going to get this done. Start the week. That's not what this works of James chapter 2 is about, but ultimately there's effort on our part. There's always going to be effort on our part, or should be effort on our part. But because of who dwells within us, and because of the faith that we have, the salvation that is true and genuine, there is a reality of the faith coming out of us. And sometimes I think we should all be amazed, I think. Have you ever seen God do, you say the impossible? Seen God do the amazing? Seen God do that which we never expected Him to do? Simply because we were where we should have been, and we didn't know. We had no idea how God was going to use that, many times in our minds, insignificant thing, events, whatever in our lives, to make an impact later. And I would dare say, I would hope that we've all seen God do things like that, where it just seems like going through the motions of life, but trying to do our best to please Him, and suddenly God takes that and multiplies it, and our fish and loaves turned into enough to bless many people, and we had no idea. Just doing what God has called us to do has results when we do what God has called us to do. Say it that way. Story is given of that's just going to bother me. Story, that's time I looked over there. Story is given of a city in Austria as Napoleon was making his crusade of conquering the world at that time across much of the known region of the time. A small city pretty much on the border of Austria saw Napoleon's army approaching. Happened to be Easter morning of all times. And they met early morning in the local church, which seemed to have been most of the time like gathering places, even here in this nation. Churches were once gathering places. And they met in the local church there of that community to find out and discuss, what are we going to do? Do we attempt to fight to defend our city with the risk of loss of life, perhaps extensive loss of life, or do we just go out and raise the white flag and just allow him to, it's yours now? Well, what do we do? And we're a small community. What can we do? And at this point, they had just seen signs kind of up on the hills around them that they're coming. So they knew the inevitable was here, so we had to come up with a plan. Well, after much discussion, the story is said, the pastor of this church stood up and said, hey, it's Easter morning. Let's leave this in God's hands. It's bigger than us. Let's meet as we would always meet, especially here on this Easter morning. Let's reconvene in, whatever, 45 minutes, whatever it was. Let's have our Easter morning service, and let's do as we've always done, and let's just see what God will do. In essence, put it in my connection with this. Let's do what God has called us to do, and be in the right place at the right time to see what God's going to do with that. And there's still effort involved. There's still a commitment involved, but we must not try to do everything in our own hands while we neglect what God wants to do. Well, the story goes that as they then rang the church bell to announce the calling of the community together for that Easter morning service, that the Napoleon's army up on the hills heard the bell, and in their minds they interpreted it that the Austrian army had arrived in town. And they then went through the same cycle that had taken place in the church and asked themselves, do we want to continue moving forward, or should we find another city to go to? Before the church service was over, Napoleon's army was gone. No battle ever raged, no shot was ever fired, at least in that instance. I think later on, obviously, he pretty much conquered everything, but in that instance, no shot was fired. They just did what God had called them to do, being faithful where God called them to be. And God used that in ways that we rang our bell. We do that every Sunday morning. But it scared the enemy away. We didn't even intend on that happening. What a reality when God does things like that. But anyway, we come to this passage here in Hebrews, and again, contrasting, beginning with the conjunction there, verse 9, but it's a contrast to the first 8 verses. Now we're kind of directing our attention to the reality. Let's say it this way. Here's the reality. There's going to be a lot of sheep that look like sheep, but they smell like wolves. Or I should say, there's a lot of wolves that look like sheep, but they smell like wolves. And so they may look the part, they may act the part, they might speak the part, as verses 1 through 8 pretty much pointed out. But they aren't the part. But, he says, beloved, indicating now he's directing those that are the part, we are persuaded better things of you, and things that accompany salvation, though we thus speak. Even though we just said those 8 things to you, and kind of almost redirecting this focus, we expect better things of you. We see better things of you. Even though this is what we have just said, there's something about you, select ones, you, in contrast, that we want to speak to you right now. And so, it's really wanted to be my title, but it wound up being my first point. Better things. Things that accompany salvation, better things. And in contrast to verse 8, he that which beareth thorns and briars is rejected, and is nigh unto cursing, whose end is to be burned. But to you, who are the beloved, man, some extra words there. To you that are the beloved, there's better things. We are persuaded better things of you. You cultivate the soil and you plant the seed, especially here out in the corner of our lot over here. Cultivate the soil, plant the seed, and whether we water the garden or God waters the garden, before long things start coming up. Now, when things start coming up, there's the thing that we planted, that we intended, and then there's those other things we never wanted, desired, or intended, or even intended on planting, and they come up as well. And he's directing to those that are truly saved, those that accompany salvation, those better things, but beloved. Probably growing up, many of us heard those similar words of in a different context. Didn't you know better? Did you know better than that? Then we teach you better than that. How might have gone? And what the writer of Hebrews is saying here is, hey, there's something better of you. There's better things. And just reminded us even in that first the aspect of better things, a stronger, nobler. How we ought to live a life that, I know this is still just a descriptive kind of getting into the introduction of this next passage, but the very description of better things. This is not to compare ourselves among ourselves. It's not to try to put ourselves on pedestals above anybody else, but to remind ourselves that our lives, if we truly are of the beloved, our lives should be of better things. Again, not to sound our own horns and trumpets and pat ourselves on the back, but we should be living such a life, if we are a child of God, that it goes beyond the norm. It goes beyond the expected. It goes beyond what the world is doing. In any aspect of our lives, we should be able to see, if the world can do it to this extent, let's see what God can do in us to a much greater extent. And those better things. Verse 10 kind of picks up and it begins explaining those better things, which we already have some of those that she just asked from the A, B, and C. I bet you can figure out what the next point is. It's a better love. A better love. Beginning in verse 10, for God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love. Now, the first part of verse 10 is not saying that because of their love, God is now indebted to them to do something for them in the future. In other words, as long as we can love people like this, verse 10, that somehow we can earn it and maintain our salvation to that extent, because we almost put God in our debt. And He won't forget this. He's going to remember this, kind of like as we would person to person. Did this for you? Don't forget me when I need you, kind of a scenario. That's not what is being said here. But for God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love. You say it this way, how easy it is to grow weary in well-doing. Know how hard it is to love this way. Know how hard it is to do better things when the world around us, even, again, contrast to verses 1 through 8, even when those who are sheep in wolves' clothing, but we haven't yet determined that they're wolves, we still see them as sheep. When they seem to be living this way, we ought to be living better things. And we ought to be living a better kind of love, a deeper kind of love. Not as the world loves, but as Christ loves. And so it should be a step above those who don't know Christ. Not, again, so that we can compare ourselves among ourselves, not so that we can cast judgment upon another because of our greatness, quote unquote. But because the very reality that because we know God, we know love, and because we know that kind of love, we're going to be living that kind of love. A better love. And as we make that commitment to do a better thing, a better love, certainly God is, although the rest of the world may not enjoy it, the rest of the world may not commend us for it, the rest of the world may even rebuke us for it, our God won't forget it. And in my understanding, verse 7 is in essence pretty much the same thing of be not weary while doing. Because our God remembers, our God knows. But notice the kind of love here. I have 3 points there. Finally caught up to that. It's a love that it begins, number 1, towards his name. That a love, you forget your work and labor of love which ye have, number 1, show toward his name. A love for our God, a love for his name, a love for who he is. Then he continues on, in that you have ministered to the saints. It's a love of ministry. It's the diakonia there, is the same word root of deacon, to serve, to minister. It's a love that ministers, that deacons to the saints. And then it continues on and says, and you minister, almost as if it's saying, and you continue to love in ministry that way. And so my 3 points there under better love is a love towards his name, secondly, a love that ministers to the saint, and see a love that continues. Now the truth is that middle one, a love that is ministering and serving to the saints, is one that the wolves in sheep clothing can manufacture for a time. The world can do that to a point. There are those who are not saved who seem to be very giving, very, I say this in quotes because obviously you have to know God to know true love, but very seemingly loving, very caring and kind. Let's say use those words instead. And they can be very aware and concerned and responding even to the needs of others. Even to those who are truly saved even. Especially when we're talking about wolves in sheep's clothing. Can be responding to those who truly are the sheep. But I think it's the first and the last point that here in this verse that kind of single out what the better love is. Because it's a love that begins because of a love for our God. Not a love for me. This is not I want people to like me, I want people to accept me, I want people to recognize who I am and what I'm doing, and see that I'm loving and caring, and that I'm giving, and all those things are a love for me, a love that I want to be able to have people recognize that I'm a good person. But this kind of love begins with a love for our God first. That love for our God that ministers to others second. Specifically here, as it mentions in the verse, the saints. But then it is also, the third point takes it to another level that I don't believe that an unbeliever can do when it says, and do minister, and do serve, or and continues to serve. Love as the world uses it. Service as the world uses it. Kindness as the world uses it will always have its limits. We'll always reach a point where we've said, yeah, that's enough. I've done that enough, I've tried enough, I've cared enough, I've loved enough, I've given enough, I've done this enough, and I just can't find it within me to go give, share, serve any farther. And there's going to be a limit. A wolf can put on sheep's clothing and look like he's truly part of this fold. And can, to a point, I think, letter B to a point. Love ministering to the saints. But is it rooted because of a love for God first? Or is it a love because of me? And is it a love that has limits, or is it a love that keeps on loving? A service that keeps on serving? A ministry that keeps on ministering? Now, I know we're all human. We also live within the confines of our flesh. I know that we've all know what it's like to, as we would say, to be used by others, to be taken for granted. I know that discouragement happens, and even a true child of God will say, I just can't go any farther. I can't do this anymore. But truly a child of God is one that continues. We're going to have our times where we've given up, and we're going to have the Holy Spirit that's going to remind us, you gave up, you quit, you stopped, you shouldn't have, and we'll get right back at it. But it's a child of God that has a love that begins with our God, evidences it towards others, and it has no limits, does not stop, as Christ's true love is all about. So that truly is a better love. We know, as Paul defines what love is there in the middle of speaking of spiritual gifts in chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians. He makes it very clear that love never fails, never stops, never ends. True love, true Christ-like love, doesn't have a stopping point, doesn't have an ending point, doesn't have I've done enough of that. True love never fails. It's a better kind of love. Things that accompany salvation and better things. Kind of summarizes all of them. Better things. So, however you want to define things, it's better. Better things. More specifically, verse 10, better love. And then we move to verses 11 and 12. And we desire that every one of you show the same, very important word there, diligence, to the full assurance of hope unto the end, that ye be not, another very important word, slothful or lazy. But instead of being slothful or lazy, here's another important word, followers of them who through faith and patience inherit the promise. Again, we're not trying to earn our salvation here. We're not trying to gain something, or we give a little scratch to God's back, and therefore He's dependent on us to do something greater for us. But there's a better endurance. Kind of concludes, as I was saying in letter C there, a love that continues. A better endurance. Again, back to verse 11. Diligence. That diligence. I know that we live in a day where quitting is almost the expected. I'll say it that way. There used to be a day, even before my time, I think, that you just didn't quit. You didn't quit your marriage, you didn't quit your job, you didn't quit in your home. You were born in this house, you lived in this house, you died in this house, and you continued working the same job while you were in that house. And kind of how that worked. And I know that through the, as we would call it, the advances of our society, quote unquote, advances of our society, and much better education and opportunities and all of that, we don't do that kind of a routine anymore. But I think it's reached a point now where even in the church has oozed this lack of endurance, if I can say it that way, where it's easy to, moving on. And again, there's so many applications of that in our own homes, in our own marriages, in our own jobs, and in our communities. It just seems that there is an increase in, if we don't like what's going on, we'll just go do something else, or do it somewhere else, or what have you. Even in church membership, there seems to be, I'm thankful that you all haven't left, at least not as of yet. But there seems to be a lot of, and other church will say this, that there's a lot of just people, well, there was a day, you were born in a church, you died in the church, and you were pretty much always in that same church. That was the expectation. Not always right, because especially if you're in a church that isn't teaching truth, then probably should be getting to one that is. But now it's just a whole different society, it seems. And endurance is even not as common, unfortunately, as it seems to have once been, even in the church. And in so many aspects. Now, I'm not saying that you can't move. I'm not saying you can't get a new job. I'm not saying you can't go to another church. You can't do this. You can't do that. I'm certainly not saying those things, but it just seems like we live in a society where it's becoming common. It's becoming norm. And I think what verse 11 and 12 are, although this was written 2,000 years ago, so to speak, the challenge is still for us today that we still have that same diligence, have that same effort, an endurance, following through, keeping on, so to speak. Standing in the gap, all those phrases that are seemingly throughout the Word of God. That we would have that same diligence to the full assurance of hope unto the end. That in those better things and that better love, that we wouldn't ever reach the point where I'm just done with this. I'm tired of this. I'm exhausted of this. I'm just not going to do this anymore. Verse 12, that ye be not, as if endurance wasn't or diligence wasn't a strong enough word, that ye be not slothful. Again, laziness in our work, in our attitudes, in our serving, in our ministry. Quite literally reminds me of halftime locker room conversations. Don't slow down, don't give up, and usually somebody would answer. There was a guy in our basketball team who wasn't always qualified because of his grades, but he was often be in the locker room at halftime, and he would say something along the lines of, but we're down by 45 points. It's kind of a Peter, we call him Peter. Kind of would say something to them, like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Coach would be giving us a big triumphant, hey guys, keep going, keep doing this, you've got this. And in all of our minds, we're thinking, don't be dumb. It's halftime. We're already down by 45 points. This is high school. This isn't like the NBA that you can make 45 points in 4 minutes. That's like an entire game's worth of points that they scored against us already, and we're not coming back from that. But the coach would be all, you can do this. Don't give up. Keep moving forward. Don't slow down. And somebody, many times it was Roger, would say, hey, we're a lot of points behind. You know what our coach also didn't mind doing? Now, we are a small Christian school, and I know I've shared a basketball story before. To have a basketball team, you need at least 5 guys, and most of the time, when all of us were hitting our grades correctly, I think we had 6 guys for most of the 4 years of my high school, so we'd have 6 guys if they all qualified for a 5-man basketball team. And so that meant the starters were not just starters, they were finishers. Because typically there was one person that either for that that month or whatever, their grades had dropped down too low, or somebody wasn't feeling well, or somebody had an injury, their knee was sore, whatever it was. And so most of the time it was a 5-man team that played the whole game, 5 people. But if our coach saw us slowing down, even when the scores got so out of whack that the other team has now tripled our score, he'd pull us out and he'd put a junior higher in. Now, there's nothing worse than being a senior in high school being replaced by a 12-year-old. Really, coach? Really? He's like this tall. Well, and there's nothing worse than sitting on the sidelines knowing I messed up, I slowed down, I was giving up. And I'm looking at the scoreboard saying, what's the point? Why do I have to hustle so fast? It's not going to matter anyway. And now I'm sitting on the bench watching a 12-year-old out there trying to do what I was doing, and sadly, he's not giving up. He's not slowing down. This is the day of his life. He gets to play in the varsity basketball team. This is awesome to him. And here I sit. This is embarrassing. And so this is almost what as I read these 2 verses, I'm reminded of my coach Gary Fowles says, he's saying, guys, you got to keep going. And we're saying, no, but this is hard. This almost seems pointless. I know I've shared this before, but I remember our coach took us to a game in Chicago once. We were out in the suburbs and took us to Chicago. And I'm not trying to get racist or anything, but this team was all a different color than we were. And if you know the whole saying that white guys can't jump, that really was our team summed up in just a few words. And these guys are warming up and they're dunking the basketball. They're passing the ball up towards the direction of the hoop and they're catching it in midair and dunking it. We're still trying to do our free throws, and we're doing layups, and every once in a while we get one, and we look down to the court and they're dunking the whole team is dunking the basketball, or they do kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters. The first one would bounce it against the backboard, the next one would jump up and just tap it lightly against the backboard, and all the way through their whole lineup, and the last guy would go whoosh, and hang on the backboard and do his little hoop and holler and all that. This is just warm-ups. And we're just sitting there going, Coach, what have you done? Why are you doing this to us? We already know how to lose. You don't need to show us even more. I remember that halftime. Don't give up. Don't slow down. Coach, we can't dribble fast enough. They steal it right out of our hands. We can't jump high enough. They block it right out of the sky. We can't shoot good enough. They catch it in mid-air and run down there and dunk it on the other end. This is like we're like the NBA. We're playing the NBA and we're not the NBA. But the writer of Hebrews says to us, when it's so easy to give up, when it's so easy to say, but there's so many who are professing Christ, who are just gliding through life. It's like a halftime coach time in the locker room when you know you're down by 72. And he says, hey, don't slow down. Don't give up. You who are genuine, you're made of better things. You've got the Lord within you. You've got a better love because you know Him. And because you know Him, you've got His love within you. But then it says that you should be diligent to the full assurance of hope unto the end until the very end. In essence, to the very end of the game, you keep going, you keep enduring, you keep being diligent. Hey, you be not slothful. Hey, don't slow down, don't be lazy. Don't give up. But follow, and I like this last phrase, but followers, be followers. Doesn't sound like much of a role of leading with, we're many times called to do, but we need to be followers of who? Followers of those who through faith and patience inherit the promise. In other words, follow those who aren't giving up. Follow those who aren't being lazy. Follow those who are still being diligent. Follow those who are still loving with a better kind of love. Follow those whose life are defined by better things. Follow them. And out of any group of people that you gather together, whether it be at work or in the community, whatever, if you gather a group of people and you picked up a handful of rocks and you just tossed them carefully, I shouldn't say rocks, that's something like hurt. You pick up popcorn and you just throw a handful of popcorn into the crowd. Statistics will say that the majority of the pieces of those popcorn will hit on those who will more than likely just give up and quit, move on, do something else when it gets tough. Statistics will say that if you throw those very light pieces of popcorn fluttering through the air and just that statistics will say that the majority of those that get hit are the ones that we should not be following. But because they are the majority, it is often the ones that are easiest to follow. But this verse says that you be not slothful, but instead of being lazy, instead of being slothful, be followers of those who are set in life. We're doing the standard. We're continuing on. Those are things that accompany salvation. Now, I know that that's not an exhaustive list. We can go to so many other paths. Back we can just go to the passage on spiritual gifts, or a spiritual fruit, and see what it is that accompanies those that have true salvation. The writer of Hebrews in these verses here reminds us that there's better things. In contrast to verses 1 through 8, but, beloved, those who are genuine, we know that there's better things for you. We know that there's better things in you. And persuaded, even, it's a word that is used. Better things, stronger, nobler, better love towards His name, a love that ministers to His saints, a love that continues to minister to those saints. Better endurance, that you be not slothful, that you continue moving on, that you be followers. I know that we have all faced, maybe not high school basketball when there's only 5 guys that play on a 5-man team, but we've all faced those times where we need a locker room challenge, and a coach that says something that only Hollywood can come up with, that just says the right things at the right time, that our God has come up with that is far greater than what Hollywood could ever come up with. And He reminds us to keep on keeping on. Again, the popcorn flies into the crowd, it's going to hit those that we should be following. But because it hits so many of them, it's easy to follow after them. May we be reminded of the better things. Things that accompany true salvation. And may that be our life. Let it be our halftime. Except I'm not as sweaty as our coach was, and I'm glad that you all were not as sweaty as we were. Let this be your halftime reminder. Don't slow down. Don't give up. We truly are a child of God. Things aren't going to be easy. And it may appear on the scoreboard that we're down by a lot. But follow after. Be diligent. Don't be slothful. Be followers of those who are doing this thing. Keep it on, keep it on. Let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you again for your word, for the encouragement. I pray that as the world waxes worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived, that we be reminded of our responsibility, of even just the joy it is of eternity, of that assurance of salvation. I pray that there would be something different of us, that there would not just so we could pat ourselves on our own backs certainly, or cast judgment upon others, but that we truly would show you in our lives, by our love, by our endurance, by our selection of those that we follow after, that it would be different, that it would be better, that we would live unto you instead of unto ourselves. And I pray that you would use us as we do, and you give us opportunities because of that as well. And we thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen. We would like to sing all your anxiety, 567. Is your heart overwhelmed by sorrow as they're a life weighed down by care? Come to the cross, each burden bearing, all your anxiety, all your concerns, all your cares, all your distractions, all your reasons why this is getting hard. Leave it there. Let's say as we sing, 567. For us, we thank you for the challenge from your word. I certainly pray that beyond my own words, that the very word, your word, would ring true in our hearts, that would ring true in our actions, in our lives. And I pray that we move forward enduring for you. And we thank you for that. In Jesus' name, amen. Wednesday night again, 6 o'clock, normal time, a little food and something different. We'll see what happens.